Good morning, everyone. This is Al Fadi, and with me here, Dr. Jay Smith. And this is a special live stream on Let Us Reason that we wanted to really, he and I been talking about it for a while, and we wanted to address, which has to do with the topic of, you saw the title that I used, different Qur'ans, or will the real Qur'an please stand up? I mean, that's really an intentional topic, simply because you lately, I'm sure a lot of our viewers have heard of the term Qira'at, variant text readings of the Quran, and so on and so forth. And you've probably been exposed to most recent videos, by Shabir Ali or Yasser Qadi or Adnan Rashid and the likes. And they keep bringing up those kind of issues. So I felt it will be appropriate really to readdress this, even though myself and Dr. J. Smith, we did an entire series on the Quran's many problems, and we did address that. Maybe today we'll just focus more on the significance of that, whether we're talking about a traditional, basically a traditionally accepted story concerning the Qira'at or not. I think by the end of the show, everyone should be able to see the problem. Dr. J, I want to just welcome you, of course, as always, for being here with me, brother. Thank you for making time for us.
Well, listen, in this show, this is going to be rather unique because this time I'm going to sit back. You're going to be the expert. In almost all your other shows, you bring on experts and you do all the questioning, and then we sit there and try to expound or try to answer the questions you throw at us. In this one, you're the expert because you're the Arab speaker, you're the Arab scholar, you're also the expert on Qira'at with the Sana'a manuscript, and you did a great show with Hatun earlier, where the two of you unpacked many of the things that Shabir Ali was trying to say. I thought that was brilliant how you did that. But many of us who are not Arab speakers, we're sitting here kind of befuddled. Now, I have had Arabic. Hatun does not have Arabic. Even when you were telling her to look at the cover of that book, she was looking at the wrong letters. And unfortunately, for those of us who don't, for many of those who are watching this program who don't understand Arabic, this is where we need your help, Al-Fadi. So I'm glad you agreed to do this. I'm glad you're the host. I'm going to be throwing a lot of stuff back to you because I want you to then unpack what we're looking at. It's such an asset to have you on board, and I want to thank you.
I appreciate it, brother. But also, I want people to know that the work we're going to be showing, it's really work that compiled by Sister Hatun and yourself. And my job here, like I told you many times before, Jay, is to give a confirmation for the amazing work that you guys have done. In other words, I don't want anyone to point the finger, like you said, and say, oh, you guys don't speak Arabic, don't know Arabic. Okay, that's fine. This excuse should be thrown out of the window now that we have Arab speakers who are involved in the Quranic manuscripts. And by the way, in all fairness, I want to say there are Muslim scholars who are focused on early Quranic manuscripts. Sadly, of course, not all of them are willing to come forward and be on a show like this simply because they understand the risk that they would be taking. So we appreciate them. We want to keep their identity protected. People can always go and Google work on academia for a number of these academic works. With that said, let's dive into the topic of Qira'at. Jay, I understand as Arab speaker, at least what do we mean, without getting into technicalities, what do I mean by different qira'at of the Quran? Help people unpack this. When did you come across it for the first time? Did you consider it to be a problem, or did you think, hey, it's almost like we're looking at the NIV, or we're looking at the ESV, we're looking at the NASB, maybe we're looking at the Gospel according to Mark or Matthew or Luke, right? Is that what we're looking at?
Well, actually, if you were to take, let's just look from the biblical context. You take Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and you're saying, why is it Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are saying different things about the same event? The feeding of the 5,000. Why is it when you have Matthew, Mark doing from different standpoints, but they're all saying about the event, but they are saying it from their own perspective? In some ways, that's what Qira'at is. Qira'at is taking the same letters, the same rasm, and a group of scholars, there's 30 of them that are official, 10 of them that are known as readers, 20 of them that are the students or the ones who come underneath them that are known as the transmitters. So that's a total of 30 that have looked at the same rasm. The rasm is the skeletal text, and decided to put dots in different places and put vowels in different places. And they came up with 93,000 differences. That's what we have come to. That's what Hatun's team. When we say Hatun, it's not Hatun, please. It's not Hatun who's doing the work. She doesn't know Arabic, okay? It is the Arabs all over the world who are on her team, including yourself, Al-Fadi. You're one of them who is actually doing the work for her. So please don't think that Hatun, because has looked and found and has unpacked and understood the Arabic. She doesn't. So give her credit. She is the one that actually collected the Quran. She is the one that actually went and looked and saw, just visually saw. But she didn't have to visually see. In many of these Qira'at compilations, they will even underline the word that is different in a different color. They do it for us. The publishers do it for us. So all she had to do is find all these Qurans and then send all the different rasm to with the Qira'ats above them, with the different dots from Al-Duri or from Injumaz or Abu Jafar or Al-Qissa or Hamza al-Zayd and Shuba, and also compared them with Hafs. So she compared every one of these with Hafs. Now, at the time that she was doing this, she only had 26. When she had 26, that was in 2016. I was helping her out. I was helping her put the slides together. I knew I could read the Arabic, she could not. And so that we were putting the slides together so that they could be visible for others to see. And when we took these 26 Qurans down to Speaker's Corner in 2016, there in London, 4 years ago, this was the first time almost all the Arabs who were there had seen this. That's why Muhammad Hijab had a real crisis of faith. And that's why he pulled all the Muslims away from that meeting, because he didn't want them to see what we were showing. Whether or not he knew about this, I can't say. I didn't talk to him at that time. But it was obvious that it was a crisis of faith for him, because now 4 years later, he had that famous interview just a little over a week ago on June 8th with Yasser Qadi. Take a look at this slide here. I mean, I should be doing this. You should be doing this, Al-Fadi. Those are the 28 letters that we have today in the Arab alphabet. Now,
right, and I'm going to have him right next to us here so people can see it. So go ahead.
No, I want you to do this. I feel kind of stupid as a white American English speaker trying to tell you what we're looking at. This is really your area. What are we looking at here?
Well, I guess I want to go back a little bit here, brother, and just show people what did you mean by rasm. And what we mean by rasm is, like, people can look at this and say, if you're an Arab speaker, of course. I mean, I know some of you here do speak Arabic on some of the viewers here. If you look at it, you may make up some words, like this is Allah. It's clear. Ala, maybe Ala or Ali, you know, you never know. You see, the reason why I'm saying it could be read different ways, like maybe Allah who is exalted, or Allah is on. Why am I saying it this way? Because there is something missing here. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. So that's what Jay is referring to. So you look at the letters, the alphabets, the Arabic alphabets, and some of the letters, like this one, ba, ta, tha, jim, ha, kha. The only way I can read it this way because of these dottings. Isn't that true? You know, Jay, I mean, you discovered this, I'm sure, through the hard labor, right?
Let's make sure that people know these are modern Arab alphabet. This is the modern Arab alphabet. This alphabet there were not 28 letters when if you look at the slide before, if you look at the slide before, there are not 28 letters in those rasm, those manuscripts. I think you have the Samarkand and you have what's the one on the right? I can't see, it's too small. The one above it.
This one, the Sana, I believe.
Okay, it's your manuscript. Okay, there were not 28 letters at that time. When that was written in the 8th century, around 705, there was not 28 letters. So we're looking at modern standard Arabic in the slide you have up there now with the 28 letters, and 22 of those letters need those dots to make them different, like the ma, ta, tha, bin, and also the ya. 5 letters from just one little curly little smiley face, you can get 5 different letters. And then, as you have said, if you put 3 of them together, I think there's a further slide coming down. If you put 3 of them together, you can get upwards of 19, 20. You say you've got at least 33 words. Am I correct?
That's true. That's true. So what I'm going to do, Jay, now I'm going to make it full screen, and we'll keep talking. And when necessary, I'll come back again, and we'll have the different view. But because I want people to get the benefit of the full screen right now, so I'm going to keep going now. This is what we were showing you already. So look at these letters, for instance.
The ones that are being now. Yeah, those are the ones that do not need dots.
Exactly. What Jay is saying. The letters, these letters, you know, at least if you really know Arabic, you're not going to worry about figuring out, is it meme or is it not? Is it wow or is it not? Is it kaf or is it not? Is it alif or is it not? It's clear, usually, that that's what it is. But now let's look at this. People can see a smiley face, right?
Okay.
I mean,
And many of your words are made up of these smiley faces. Majority of your words are made up of these smiley faces. I call it smiley face. It's just a little, it's just like a bowl shape. Okay. Now, what happens when you put one dot above it?
so here's what we're going to do. Now, it's a letter known as noon in Arabic.
2 dots?
Now, 2 dots, it's ta in Arabic. That's a different letter. Tha in Arabic. That's a whole different letter. Now we have 3 letters already in this shape.
3 different letters.
So,
and 3 different dots above the line. Now let's see what happens below the line. Let's say take those 3 dots off and start at the bottom, below the smiley face.
so now we have 1 dot. That's ba, letter ba. So you put 2. It's the letter ya. And what happened is the same shape, folks, has 5 different ways to read it now, depending on the type of dot and the number of dots that you have. So I guess people can see now why there is a problem. If you are unaware of the reading, like Muslims will tell you, oh, it's based on memorization. It's based on a transmission, the chain of transmitters, it preserved in memory. I mean, okay, that's fine. Let's put all that aside. If you do not know any of these ideas about memorization or how it's been read, you can read it in a variety of ways. Even if you're a scribe to write it, Jay, you can write it in different ways too. We have examples of that, by the way, of copyist errors.
Yeah. And so this is why when Shabir or when Qadi or when Hijab or Rashid, any of these 4 who have been all over the internet in the last week and a half, when they say it doesn't mean any difference, it doesn't change a thing, it doesn't change any doctrine, it doesn't change any belief, it doesn't change any practice. It's like a mantra, they're saying. They've got this memorized, and they just keep on spewing this excuse after excuse after excuse. And most of us, I would say 99%, well, even the Muslim world, 85% of all Muslims don't speak Arabic. So they hear this, they say, good. Wow, so good that this doesn't change anything. This is what we want, the hijabs. This is what we want, the qadis. This is what we want, the Adnan Rashids. And this is certainly what we want Shabirati to tell us. We don't have to worry because no doctrine, no chant, no belief, no practice has been changed. They don't know any different. And this is what they have been told since they were knee-high to a grasshopper. And this is what the scholars want you to believe. But see, we don't, that's the red line beyond which you're not supposed to go, according to Yasser Qadi. They don't allow people to go beyond that red line. We're going to go beyond that red line because we live in the West. And we live in a Judeo-Christian environment where we do allow anybody to criticize, critique. We don't call people who criticize the Bible Christianophobes. We don't give them names. We don't demonize them. We say, absolutely, criticize the Bible. For heaven's sakes, criticize Jesus Christ. Do so, because Jesus and the Bible can stand up to criticism. Obviously, the Quran cannot. And so even since 2 days ago, have you seen what Qadi has done? He's put up now on Facebook a terrible diatribe against us, calling us Islamophobes. Muslim haters. What's Muslim hater got to do with what we're talking about? We've never said anything.
So this is a Qadi's response to what we were doing? You mean right after his interview?
These missionaries who are taking his words out of context, who are besmirching his character because we are Muslim haters and we are Islamophobes. For goodness sakes, when have we ever done that when someone's criticized our Lord Jesus Christ, or criticized how we defend him, or criticized when there is, and it would be great if we could find a video where 2 Christians are so embarrassed because they come from 2 different sides of Christianity, and then we say, because you've actually exposed this to the public, you're suddenly being a hate preacher, or you're a Christianophobe. In fact, Christianophobe, does it even exist? Is there such a word? Is there anything like a Buddhistophobe or Hinduophobe or atheophobe? Those words seem stupid. There's only one word in the English language, and that is Islamophobe. It only exists in Islam, proving that red line must not be crossed. I'm going to keep using that red line. I think Qadi has given us a great fact. That might go into our English parlance. The red line, only Islam has a red line which you cannot cross. And once you cross that red line, you're an Islamophobe. You're
I know.
You're a hatred of Muslims, not hatred of Islam, a hatred of Muslims. Where in the world are they going with? Unless, obviously, they don't want us to cross that red line. So what do? You demonize the messenger without even looking at the message.
Yeah, and that's the problem. I mean, I don't blame Yasser Qadi for coming to rescue his life and himself, of course, because he put himself in a very hot water, and now there is this process of damage control. I mean, as you are aware of this, of course, on our live stream on Saturday, we discovered that Muhammad Hijab took away about 30 minutes of his video. That's the interview part where Qadi was saying that there are problems with the tradition and holes in there and so on and so forth. And I think you will be addressing this soon on another live stream with David Wood, if I recall correctly.
At
And
8
and
o'clock.
now absolutely. And now you're seeing, of course, his attempt to save face. And I think the damage is done. You can say it was taken out of context by himself. He can say that, but people can go and watch this interview and tell us where it was taken out of context. It was very clear that he was very focused on how to answer it. He admitted things, So if that's taking things out of context, then I'm afraid that Yasser Qadi has no business being live with people on interviews, since he doesn't know how to say things, I guess.
Let's be careful here. That's only been excised out of Hijab's video. If you go up on Yasser Qadi's site, he's kept up all 1 hour and 45 minutes. It is Muhammad Hijab that it has excised it, and only goes up to 1 hour and 16 minutes. When you go up to Yasser Qadi, start at 1 hour and 21 minutes. That's where the damage begins. That's where the real damaging part, and that has been taken out, censored, and no reference. No one has said anything about it on Hijab's site. But on Yasser Qadi's site, you have to give him credit. He has kept it up there, though he's getting an awful lot of backlash. His only response is, well, these are just Islamophobes. No, we're not. We have all the right in the world. We're living in the West, Al-Qadi. Yasser Qadi, you are living in the West. You know better than that to just give us and demean us. You know that you've got to deal with what you say. If you say something publicly, you've got to support what you say publicly and come up with answers. So when that hand was put out by when Hijab put out his hand, says, "What are you going to write on this blank piece of paper? I'm giving you a blank piece of paper. What are you going to write? Which Qira'at are you going to put on? Which one of these set of dots? Which one of these many different sets of dots?" Remember, by the time the 9th century comes into play, there are already 30 of these different categories, 30 of them, and I have them right here. You can see them. These are. You can get this on Wikipedia. I just took this off of Wikipedia this morning just to see. So it's all over the internet. And you can't censor Wikipedia and say you have to take these down, because these are well known. These have been up there. We have known about these names. And look at the dates. Look at, these are the readers on this side, and here are the reciters on this side. And look at their dates. This is 736, 770, 864, 904, 844, 853, 899. This is not the 7th century. This is the late 8th century, the 9th century, and into the 10th century. And what's fascinating on me, that means they've known about this for 1,000 years. This is not new. It's been around for 1,000 years. What Yasser Qadi was talking about last week, he has known for 25 years, caused them a crisis of faith there at Yale University. But it should not be something that you try to censor today. Let Yasser Qadi say that, for heaven's sake, and let us respond to it. This is what it means to be peer-reviewed. You have to be peer-reviewed. Yasser Qadi, please don't call names about people who are reviewing what you said in an innocent interview. It was only 25 minutes long. Let's have to do that. And let's go back now, Al-Fadi, because it's not just Yasser Qadi who's making these problems, who are bringing up these problems. It's also Shabir Ali. Shabir Ali is also saying, at least he's not calling people names. At least he's not calling us Islamophobe. At least he's putting up videos to respond to us. He put up a video a week and a half ago of an hour and a half long to respond to my 2 videos that I did 2 or 3 weeks ago. That's the way you do it. Put up a video, respond to it, peer review, and then respond to the criticism that is there. Don't censor us. Don't demonize us. Respond to us. That's what people want to see, because Muslims want to see this. We want to see it. We want to see how someone of Yasser Qadi's reputation, he's got a doctorate in this area. He's one of the highest respected clerics, one of the highest respected academics in the Muslim world, in the English-speaking world. But remember, we have 2 different worlds going on here. Okay, we have the Western world, which Al-Qadi belongs. Yasser, I'm getting you mixed up with your name, Al-Fadi. It's Yasser Qadi belongs to over here, and then we have the popular world. In the populist world, this is where Hijab, this is where Adnan Rashid, this is where Mansour Ahmad, this is where Shabir Ali Actually, Shabbat kind of crosses back and forth between the two. Let's put Shabbat over here as well, because he actually does belong in this one better. But the other ones, these are the populace. These are the YouTubers. The YouTubers over here are huge as far as their reputation. And they represent all, I would suggest, correct me if I'm wrong, Al-Fadi, they represent about 1.8 billion Muslims. The Western educated, the Western Muslims like Shabir Ali and Yasser Fadi probably only represent 1%. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, anything they say, of course, especially in relationship to this topic, has been unique. I doubt there is a lot of Muslims like themselves who will come forward with these kind of admissions. I mean, there is a lot of Muslim scholars, like I said, who are working on Quranic manuscripts who would agree with what Yasser Qadi says, would agree with what Shabir Ali says, would agree with me, with you, with Dr. Daniel Brubaker, but they're not going to come forward and say that. So that's why there is uniqueness here in terms of their admission publicly.
So if you have on this side only 1% of all Muslims, and they tend to be in the West, and they tend to be in academic institutions, who are listening to and would agree with what Yasser Qadi said last week, 99% over here are the ones who are supporting hijab, Rashid, also Mansour Ahmad, and Sakir Naik, Ahmadiyya, all the other, but the YouTubers. And they're the ones that we've had, listen, they're the ones I have to deal with. I've had to deal with for 25 years at Speaker's Corner, because the Mansour Ahmads, the Muhammad Hijabs, the Ali Dawas, and also the Adnan Rashids have been on my case and are still on Hattun's case for as many years as they've been there. I've been there. I was there for 25 years, and they used to hit us in the neck all the time with these claims of absolute preservation, complete preservation. I remember Adnan Rashid getting up there a number of years ago, and he and I would have these impromptu debates. He would just put his ladder next to me. I would be up on the ladder, and he would force me into a debate. I wanted to talk about something else. He would force me into debate, and we would go into these claim after claim. And he would claim that there were 100,000 of these manuscripts at the time of Uthman. 100,000, he would claim. I wish I'd filmed them at that time so I could put it back to the whole public. Now it's come down to 6 manuscripts, just 6 manuscripts by the time of 2007, when you had the two great scholars there in Turkey, Atkulic and Ekmed al-Nasaldu, actually come up and make that proclamation. There are really only 6 manuscripts, and none of them are Uthmanic. Not one of them is Uthmanic. So here it's come down to 6. Now, did you see what Adnan Rashid did on Friday? Friday, now, he is zeroing in, not on the Topkapi, not on your Sana manuscript. He's now zeroing in on the Husseini manuscript. And he tried to support the Husseini manuscript, which is not even one of those recognized on Islamic awareness as within the 1st century. It's not in the 63 that they have claimed there that are just little fragments. It's not one of them. But interesting, fascinating, they're now reducing it from 100,000 down to 6, now down to 1. And which is that one? Well, it's actually 2. But then the other one is the Birmingham Folio. The Birmingham Folio is not a manuscript. It's only 33 verses on 2 pages. How do you call that a manuscript? 33 verses in 3 different chapters. It is 0.005 of a Quran, yet he's calling that a Quran. So you can see the desperation they're in. Can you understand that if you're going to talk about Qira'at, that's a much later problem. Qira'at is much more in the 8th and 9th and 10th century problem. The manuscript evidence that we're talking about, that I would like to get to, that Adnan has introduced on Friday, that Hattun and I talked about yesterday, that Daniel Brubaker is working on. Now, Daniel Brubaker just today has now entered into YouTube. And you all need to go up on his...
Yes, and he did send me the link, by the way.
Variant Quran. It's called Variant Quran. Go up and look and see what he's doing. He is taking his it's more than 10 years of study, his doctoral thesis, and he's putting it on to 10 to 15 minute videos, taking and showing you change after change after change after change of rasm. These are rasm. Now help us. What does that mean? Because that's what we need to get to. Where are we going with that?
The rasm basically is the shape of the words, the structure. That's the technical term, the structure of the word. So let's say this. If I write the word ball, B-A-L-L, in English, that we call this rasm. But in Arabic, of course, it's a little different. It's, yes, the same word, you write it in Arabic, but that's the shape of the word. Now, the problem is when you start putting these dots that we showed you. And on top of this, Jay, not only the dots can control the way the word could be read, but even something called diacritical markings, how to pronounce it, tashkil, That makes a difference in whether this word becomes a noun. It could become maybe a verb. It could become an adjective, and the list can go on and on and on. So, in fact, let me just show another example related to this to help people just see for themselves what is it that I am referring to. Keep talking, brother, while I go to the
When you
screen
put
sharing mode.
all these dots and all these vowels, the dama, the kasra, the fatha, those are the three vowels. The dama is the u sound, the kasra is the e sound, the fatha is the a sound. These were only introduced into Arabic in the 8th century. They were only standardized in the late 8th century. So we're talking about 150 years after supposedly the Quran was written at the time of Uthman. In 652, we're talking about late 700s and early 800s into the 9th century. So the standardization of these dots, the standardization of these vowels is 150 years later. And that's really what Shabir Ali and I would like us to keep on. He would like us to really retain on that. So look, there's the three smiley faces we're talking about. Go ahead.
So now, can you see the screen? These 19 different words. Okay, so this is what we mean by look. It's 3 letters actually. Ba, ya, ta. But before that, it was without any dots, without anything related to it. So when you start putting the dots, whether underneath or above, look what's going on. The word becomes a house, or it becomes with the tashkil or the diacritical marks. It sprouted, stayed over, a girl or a daughter. She built, basically stood firm, grew. You can see what's going on. It's the same rasm, the same structure. It just how you put the dots and how you put the diacritical marks makes a big difference on the meaning itself. So what we're trying to tell you here, folks, me and Dr. J. Smith, is that this is how the initial Quran was written. This is what the early Quranic manuscripts were written like. They're represented by rasm without dots or diacritical marks. Now, we understand that later on some scribes came back and tried to put these dots or diacritical marks. Why? Because they recognize the problem in reading it. In fact, if we want to take the tradition that Uthman did such a collection or recension, and acknowledge that maybe this tradition did indeed happen, the reason behind it, as the traditions will say, is that people will recite in the Quran in different ways, and he wanted to standardize that reading per se.
Go to the next slide.
So here is the next slide now. Obviously, our infamous, image of the different Qurans here. You want to talk about this?
Yeah. Now these are all Hatun's Qurans. Everything we're showing from here on out is from Hatun, and we need to give credit to Hatun Tash. Now, for most of you, this will be the first time you have seen it, and this is what's curious to me. Why is it the first time you've seen it? This should be well known all over the Muslim world. This should be something that is taught in all the Muslim schools and all the madrasas and the mosques. They should know about these different Qurans, because these Qurans you can buy in marketplaces today. How do you think she got a hold of them? She's only been collecting them since 2015. She's collected these all in the last 5 years, not herself. She has people who go to Jordan, to go to Morocco, go to Yemen, and then they go to the marketplaces and they phone her up and says, by the way, we've got one here from Al-Susi. Have you got that one? She says, no, get it, please get it. So they only pay a few pounds for that, and they bring it back to London to her. Or we've got one here from Dudi. And then she says, oh, actually, we got another one from Dudi. 2 different Dudis. Dudi contradicts himself, because he's under two different readers, and he belongs to 2 different readers, completely contradicts himself. So that's how they are coming back. But this was in 2014. She only had 26 of them. Now she's up to 37. She's collected 37 of them. Anybody can do this. If she can do it, anybody can do it. But why aren't the Muslims doing it? And this is what caused a crisis of faith for Yasser Qadi when he was at Yale University 25 years ago. He hadn't been told this. What is he doing getting a PhD? By the time he gets a PhD, that's the top level degree you can get, and you're finally coming across this. I would ask to say, what in the world was his upbringing then? And that's where he said, I wasn't permitted to ask this question because there's that red line. I wasn't permitted to ask these kind of questions. I didn't know about this. Now I'm in Yale University, and the scholars there in Yale University, they're way ahead of us. They've not only asked that question, put up the next slide. They know exactly who these people are. Look at the next.
I just want to comment quickly before I put the next slide. Jay, let's just hypothetically speak and say this. I am a Muslim, grew up studying Islam. I'm told that the book you're studying is a perfect book. It's preserved in heaven in the preserved tablets, that it is God's word. And then all of a sudden, you go to a store and you discover, which by the way, some of them are available online, like you said, you discover two that are called Qur'ans according to Hafs or according to a Susi, and you're like, what is this? And then you start looking at it, and then you come across like the 10 readings who are color coded, and so-and-so read it this way, so-and-so read it that way. I would probably also be disturbed by it, because I mean, logic says if I believe in one perfect book, why do I have two versions of that perfect book? What do you mean perfect? How is it perfect if it has two different versions? You see, I can understand why Yasser Qadi struggled, because he used his mind to process what was going on. And I agree with his reaction, of course. So let's take a look, of course, like you said, at the next slide. And we will show why that's a problem. So here, go ahead.
Readers and narrators. These are the
10. I want to go to the next one here, which has the dates, actually, which is better to look at it from a dates standpoint. Go ahead.
This is the one I put together, quickly sent to you. This is the one that looks at the readers on the left, and each of the readers has two, we will call them disciples, but if you look at the dates, you can see some of them weren't even living when the readers died. But these are the ones who come much later and actually write down their own variants. So the ones on the left, there's 10 recognized readers. Remember, by 10th century, 936, so take a look at the dates. This is even after all of these guys are dead. 936, Ibn Mujahid only recognized the first 7. Number 1 to 7. That's Nafi, Ibn Kathir, Abu Amir, Ibn Amir al-Dimashq, Asim bin Abi. I should be letting you reading this.
So the first one is Al-Madani from Medina. The second one is Al-Makki from Mecca. And the third one, Ibn Abu Amir, basically Ibn Al-Ala, Ibn Amr al-Dimashqi, meaning from Damascus, basically.
Damascus.
And and you keep going here, and these are the 7 that you mentioned.
So he only recognized the first 7, okay? And that was in 936. 936, that's the 10th century. That's 300 years after Muhammad. You finally get 7 readings. That's all that he would recognize. Then after that, another 3 were added. And there's the 8, 9, and 10 that you see there.
That's right. There is 4 more after this that were added too.
And there's 4 more. Well, however, then go on the 2 right columns. Each of them had 2 stewards or 2 transmitters, which were also then recognized. So you're now up to 30. You see what I'm saying? You're now up to 30 that were recognized. But hold on a minute. Which is the one that was finally chosen out of these 30? Look at the one that was chosen in 1924 to be the standard Qira'at.
I hope people can see the highlight here.
It's in blue. It's the one you've just highlighted. Way over to the right. He's not even one of the readers. He's nothing more than an insignificant transmitter that died in 796, 244 years after Muhammad died. So hold on a minute. Was he there living with Muhammad? No. Did he ever hear Muhammad? No. Was he there living at the time of Uthman? No. Did he even live in that part of the world? No. He lived in Iraq. He lived in Kufa, which is just south of Baghdad. So he lived hundreds of miles away, and he lived hundreds of years later.
And Jay, let me comment here quickly. Why didn't they choose the Makki or the Al-Madani, meaning from Mecca or Medina? Isn't that where the Quran came from? Isn't that where the origin of the Quran? Isn't that where supposedly in Medina we have the Medina Codex that supposedly Uthman kept for his personal use, and it was there?
Better yet.
Why is it that Damashqi from the Levant, southern Levant, is earlier than these guys? I mean, Jay, let's put the pieces together here. I mean, there's something going on in the Levant area, right?
Go one step further. What is it that al-Bukhari says when Uthman turns towards Zayd ibn Thabit and says it must be in the Qurayshi dialect, right?
That's right, which is Mecca.
Is Iraq the Qurayshi dialect?
Of course not.
Medina and Mecca would be the Qurayshi dialect, right?
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. So here in my hand, by the way, Jay, in my hand, of course, I'm doing my PhD on the Sana manuscript, and I'm reading an article that is really interesting. It's called The Stima of the Regional Codices, and it's based on the idea that Uthman disseminated 4 copies because simply that's the commonly accepted, view, that only 4 copies were disseminated to Kufa, Basra, to Syria, and 1 is kept in Medina. I certainly, humbly and kindly disagree with the author, because the same tradition that says 4 also said he sent it to the Amsar, to all the regions. Some would argue it was 7. Some will say even up to 9 if we want to add his copy. So all that to say, even when you look at it this way, you study the Stama, there are still problems.
Okay, let me just say, every province at the time of Uthman, 652, how many provinces did we have at that time? Count them: Basra, Baghdad, Damascus, Jerusalem, Cairo, Alexandria, Aden, Herat, Nishapur. How many fingers do I have up?
So far, you have 9.
9 figures, 9 provinces, 9 codices. That means 9 codices sent to 9 different cities. I've given you 9 different cities that represent 9 provinces. Where are those 9 today?
Yeah, and Jay, I want to add something. I mean, a lot of people, I think, overlook this. The terminology in Arabic says that he, Uthman, disseminated it to Al-Amsar. What do we mean by Amsar? Regions, right? And then he also, the same tradition says, and he also disseminated among Al-Ajnad, the different soldiers and troops. So where were they? They were expanding the territories even further north to Armenia, modern day Turkey. So it's even beyond 9, my friend, because remember, the whole idea started that Uthman received reports from his soldiers that there is, commotion taking place, and there is division among the soldiers because everyone is reading the Quran according to his own understanding of how it should be read.
There you go. And that's why Ibn Mujahid in 936 finally said only 7. Now, then it expanded to 10. Now it's expanded to 14. Now it's expanded to 30. So where did these 30 come from? So how did it go from 7 to 30? See, this is another question I would like to know. Where did they get these 30 from? Who was the one that decided on these 30? And then in 1924, Muhammad al-Husayni al-Haddad, one man. Do you know who he is? Muhammad al-Husayni al-Haddad.
Well, we're talking about the 1924 now.
So who is this guy? Muhammad al-Husayni, is he a prophet?
Not at all. I mean, in fact, if you ask any Muslim in general, the chances are they wouldn't even know who he is.
He is nothing more than a teacher at Al-Azhar University in Cairo, who was asked this question by the Bureau of Education there in the city of Cairo to choose one of these as the authoritative one. And he chose Hafs. What was his credentials? And why did he choose Hafs? No one seems to know why he chose Hafs, but he chose Hafs. I would agree with you. He should have chosen Nafi or Ibn Kathir, any of those from Medina or from Mecca. But no, he chose not even a reader. He chose a transmitter, nothing more than a transmitter, who died in the late 8th century from Kufa, way over in Iraq, who doesn't even have the dialect as the Hijaz, where Mecca and Medina are placed. The very thing that Uthman demanded. It must be written in the Hijazi. It must be written in the Qurayshi dialect. The Qurayshi are the same dialect that supposedly Muhammad came from. So can you see, to me, why haven't these questions been asked? And are we going to be called Islamophobes for asking these questions? We are.
It appears that we are being called Islamophobes. And I can tell you, my friend, that we are going to receive pushbacks, not just from the Islamic community. It seems even social media is on our back and picking on anything and everything that we say.
Well, I want you to go to the next slide following the one you just put up. I know you just put it down. Go back to the very next slide, because this is what Hatun has done. This is why I thank God for Hatun and all the work she has done. God bless her. People, you need to support her. You need to go to DCCI. Go to her site. She is being attacked now by like never before. She is getting more attacks now than I have ever seen. She is getting enormous attacks, not just from the Muslims. She's getting attacks from YouTube. She's getting attacks from all the institutions, because she has done something that no one has dared to do. She's actually put this into a graph. Take a look at this graph that she put together. This is a few years old. It needs to be up to date. But there you can see the 5 cities in the orange, the blue, the yellow, and the light brown, and then the more golden at the bottom. Those are the 5 cities: Medina, Mecca, Basra, Kufa, and Syria. Those are the 5 cities from which these readers came from. And the readers, then, they're the students. There are their transmitters are to the right. When look at those little brown clouds that are to the right of every one of them. So every time you see a brown cloud to the right of them, that is the number of variants that reader or that reciter has from the Hafs, which is circled in black. So the one Hafs is the one that was chosen as the standard. That's the one they're using all over the world today. And that's the one that has become the standard since 1924, but only since 1985 for the whole world. So it's only 35 years old. Only for the last 35 years has this Qira'at now been chosen as the standard for all Muslims everywhere in the Sunni world by King Fahd himself. So it's called the Fadi text. Now, can you notice every time you see those little brown clouds, take a look at the number. This is what Hatun has done. Look at Al-Bazi at the very top. His derivation of dots have 1,094 differences from Hafs. Coming on down to Hisham, who died in 859, his has 1,300. Coming down to Khalif, his has 2,600. Then you come on down to, look at Abu Ali al-Harith. There, he has 5,000 differences. So we're not talking about 1 or 2, like Shabir Ali would like us to believe. Shabir Ali said there's a very few differences. We're talking about thousands. In fact, right now, just looking at 23 of them, the team that is working for Hatun have managed to tabulate 93,263 differences just between these 30 transmitters, these 30 different Qira'at. Can you then understand? Now, I don't think Yasser Qadi has even heard this number yet. I don't think Shabir Ali has even heard this number. I don't think any Muslim has heard this number because no Muslim has done what Hatun Tash has done. No Muslim has dared do what a little girl from Turkey who's living in London has dared to do. I haven't done this. Have you done this? No one has done this. And why shouldn't they have done this? We have done this with our Bible. Goodness sakes, F.F. Bruce is famous for doing this. He went and found all the different variants. He went and found all the variants of the biblical text. We know where they all are. We have been transparent about it. You can't. I remember hearing about this when I was in seminary. We had to learn this. Every Christian has to learn this about the variants of the Bible. We know this. This is quite normal because we know that when men write, and they write later on, and when they copyist errors get in there. And we know when they're there, and we know by looking, because we have 24,000 manuscripts to look at. We have 86,000 early church fathers quotations to look at. We have 19,000 of those manuscripts are written in 11 different languages. So we have an enormous amount of corpus to go to. Islam only has 6 manuscripts. That's all they've got, 6 manuscripts of the rasm, and then they have the 30 Qira'at, which come in the 8th and 9th. Looking at the rasm, by putting the dots above and below the line of these rasm, they are now coming up with these 30. And this has not yet been taught in any Islamic school. And for most of you people who are watching the show, this is probably the first time you've ever heard of it, including you Muslims. And I'm sure that many of you Muslims who are watching this show are probably going through a crisis of faith, like Yasser Qadi did 25 years ago, and is still going through a crisis of faith because he couldn't even ask in 25 minutes of hijab, asking him not once, not twice, give me, which Qira'at is going to be on this hand? Which are you going to write? Which Quran is going to be there? Is it going to be, which is the Quran that Uthman finalized? Which is the Quran that Muhammad received? Which is the Qira'at that's in heaven on that eternal tablet? Which is the Qira'at that's in heaven? See, here's the irony. There won't be any Qira'at in heaven because Qira'at are man-made. Am I correct?
Absolutely. You know, we have someone who has a crisis of faith here. And I'm hearing myself, by the way. I don't know if you have YouTube on. Okay. So here is a comment by apparently it's a Muslim who obviously is having a meltdown right now because he's been using cuss words and profanities, and I deleted a couple of his comments. But he's saying we love to see Christians preaching Islam with lies. Okay, Jay, what are we lying about here?
All right, I'd like to know what Muslims are saying we're lying about, because I heard on Friday where our good friend Adnan Rashid, who I've known for years, and he and I have done 4 formal debates and many, many, many informal debates at Speaker's Corner, the formal debates outside of Speaker's Corner. We're good friends. But I heard him going, not once, not twice, 15 times within 2 minutes, calling us liars. Liars, you're liars. I mean, 15 times. And I'm sitting there saying, yikes, is that the only thing he can throw at us? Show us what lies. I'd like to know what lies he's talking about. And then he made claim after claim after claim after claim. And those claims we unpacked yesterday on Hatun Tash's site and DCCI. what we found out is we weren't doing the lying. It was Adnan Rashid that was doing the lying. He made claim that he could not support. If we are lying, then show us where we are. Don't just call us a liar. Prove to us where we are lying. What are we saying today? What have maybe I should ask you, Fadi, is there anything that I've said in the last 45 minutes that we've been on that you could see as a lie?
Of course not, brother. I mean, it's obvious that we're sharing things on a screen for people to see what we're even saying. So no one can accuse you or me of fabricating things. They can see it themselves. They can go back to it. They can look at it. They can examine it. They can even ask their Arab-speaking friends to see if we are accused of lying. I encourage anyone to please bring forward the lie. Tell us on your video at this minute you said this. That's a lie. Just bring it to our attention.
Now, let's give some background here. Since 1992 up until 2017, for 25 years, I would go down to Speaker's Corner every Sunday that I was free, every Sunday and that was over, I counted up, it's over 1,000 times I've been at Speaker's Corner. I would get up on a ladder and I would be surrounded by sometimes hundreds of Muslims. And the Speaker's Corner is the only place on earth where we can actually get this material out. It's the only place on earth where we can actually get peer reviewed immediately. It's the only place on earth that they can't censure you. It's the bastion of freedom of speech, Speaker's Corner. And I would get up there and almost within 5 minutes, we would get this response. You're a liar. You're a liar. And I'd say, where have I just lied? I'm quoting your own tradition. I'm reading your own material. I'm going to your own authors. I'm reading your own Quran. I'm going to Al-Bukhari. I'm going to Sahih Muslim. I'm going to Ibn Dawud. I'm going to Tirmidhi. I'm going to Tabari. These are your own writers. Where am I lying here? Show me. I'm showing it to you. Yeah. And when we went down to take up these Qira'at, and we just showed them there in 2016, they try to grab them out of our hands, as if by grabbing them out and tearing them out, that would eradicate the problem. As we were leaving, we did this 3 times. I think it was the second or the third time. When we were leaving, they tried to grab the Qur'ans out of our Bible. And I get this all the time, so I'm used to this. You're a liar. You're a liar. But they don't say where we're lying. And I would love them to then go back, unpack where our lies are, and then let's have a discussion. That's what you do in the West. Remember, we're in the West now. You can get away with this in the East because you're not permitted to go beyond that red line. We understand that. But you're in the West now. And in the West, you've got to listen to criticism. You've got to have a thicker skin. You've got to start listening to this, because until you start listening to this, Muslims, you're not going to be able to we're not going to take you seriously. And you're just giving us and throwing ad hominem at us doesn't help you. Ad hominem is proof to me that you've lost the debate. When you start using ad hominem, then pretty much you really don't have any defense. So be careful by just calling us liars. Look and see what we're saying. Throw it back at us. Let's have a discussion. Write it in the comments. Get there below CIRA International. There's this comment box there. Write out what your problem is. Show us where we're lying, and then we will come back and say, if we have lied, then God bless you. We'll apologize for that. But don't just say we're liars. That doesn't help anybody, and it doesn't help the rest looking on, because it makes you look foolish. That we don't need to have in this kind of debate, in this kind of discussion.
And here is another gentleman who obviously is telling us why we lied. And here's what he's saying. He said, because we hate Islam and the Quran. Is that what it is? Do we hate Muslim?
No, look at, he says we hate Muslims.
Muslim, yeah, that's right. We hate Muslim and the Quran. Is that what we're doing here? Do we hate Muslim, or do we love Muslims that we're trying to help them see for themselves what has been hidden from them for centuries?
So far, we have gone for 50 minutes. Have we said anything about Muslims, or have we talked all about the Quran? Have we talked all about Qira'at? What is this hatred of Muslims? Is this the only recourse we're going to get? Is this the level of discussion that we're going to have?
Exactly.
The level of discussion we're going to have, then you Muslims might as well go home. Now I am talking about Muslims. You might as well go home if this is all you can do, and that is yell, scream, and holler, and use defamation against us. Please deal with what we're saying. Look at your Qira'at. Remember your Qira'at that are introduced in the 8th and 9th century. Why don't you go back to the 7th century and show us what you actually had in the 7th century? Let's look at those Qurans. Where is this Uthmanic recension? But let's go back to Qira'at, because I think we need to look at some of these before we're going to come up within an hour. We're not even have a chance to look at any of them.
This, which is perfect, by the way, because the same person, Kareem, asked that perfect question. He says, you said we have different Quran. Okay, can you please show us one Quran which we'll not find in another Quran? Now, I think it's obvious to me, Jay, that the person here who, again, supposedly a Muslim, doesn't even know what the word Quran means. Quran is recitation. It's not just we're talking about an entire book It's recitations, different readings. If you find one single thing in any book that contradicts supposedly another version of that book, then you have different Qur'ans. You cannot tell me you have one sentence here in this book that varies from another sentence on another book, and you consider both of them to be one and the same. So we're going to show people now some examples. I mean, perfect timing, actually. I mean, I am so thankful that our friend actually ventured into this particular topic, because that's exactly what we would like to do. So I'm going to go there now and do our shared screen one more time, because it's extremely important for people to begin to see what we're talking about. So here is a very simple variance, Jay. This is what Muslims read daily, 17 times if they pray all the 5 prayers. Not all Muslims pray the 5 prayers, by the way.
1:4, right? You're going to 1:4.
Yeah, so chapter 1, verse 4.
Now, let's give some background. Almost any time you get into this debate about Qira'at with a Muslim, this is the one they always bring up. This is the one they're taught. This is the only one they're ever taught. And you can see why. Go ahead, unpack it.
There it is. Okay, so we are going to look at this particular reading. On the right side, the reading according to Warsh, which is found mainly in North Africa. That's where it's most popular. And in the next one is the reading according to Hafs, which is the most popular reading of the Quran all over the world, and especially in the Middle East, of course. So, in the left side,
let me interrupt you quickly. So, for every one of these slides we're going to go through, we'll have Hafs on the left. Why do we have Hafs on the left? Because that is the standard today. That was the one that we just talked about and was chosen by Muhammad al-Hazani al-Haddad. So that is what all Muslims use as their standard. These other ones on the right, you'll see there'll be different names. Each one of these different names are one of the 37 that we now have in London. So these are, we're looking like with like, we're comparing every one of them with Hafs. So Hafs will always be in blue, Warsh will be in yellow, or whatever. Right. The other one will be in yellow, whatever one we choose.
So I'm gonna talk as an Arab speaker. You know, the reading according to Hafs is, this is verse 4 in Surah Al-Fatiha, Maliki Yawmiddin. Now, the word Malik, you can see it here. It was transliterated for you. It means the only owner or the owner of. In fact, we use this term in Arabic to denote an owner of a real estate, right? You know, he's the owner of this building. He's the owner of this house. We use the word Malik, Malik al-Bayt, right? He's the owner of this house. Okay, that's fine. There is some problem here, because to become an owner of something, you must have received this ownership from someone else. But let's lay that aside. Look at Warsh. Warsh is saying Malik. He's the king of the day of recompense. You ask me, is there a difference between being a king and being an owner? I will say, of course there is. Of course there is. One is a specific ownership to something. One is a kingship over that thing and possibly over other things. But you know, Jay, that there is another reading that Muslims are not going to venture to talk about it. They consider it to be a heretical reading by Abu Hanifa, the founder of the Hanafi school of Sharia, who was one of the followers of the companions. And he says, Malaka, he possessed the day of recompense. Possessed it from whom? You see the problem here?
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Now we need to get a hold of that. Do you have that in a text form that we can look at?
I do. I need to put it together really for you. I remember Ijaz Ahmed, like I said, was so disturbed by what I said and accused me of lying, of course, the typical accusation that we received, and challenged me to try to prove it. And I'm putting together basically not only the reading, but to show that according to the early Islamic commentaries, that many referred to this way of reading it. You know, so we want to definitely show this. So let's go to another one, Jay, because we have more than just this example. So now we are going to go to chapter 2, verse 10, and I just want to make sure that people can see what I am seeing as well and what you're seeing. So let's go there, and we are going to share our screen right here. So here it is, chapter 2, verse 10. Once again, just like Jay says, on the left side, it's Hafs. Why? Because it's a standard reading. It's based on the 1924 Cairo edition. And then we have Warsh, in this case, also on the right side. So let me go and just read it as an Arab speaker. I'll tell you why it's there is a problem. So the Hafs reading in Arabic says, Bima kanu yakdhibun. Yakdhibun. What does it mean? Because they lied. Because they lied. Okay. Now on the right side, the Warsh, it says yukadhibun. Yukadhibun. They accuse others here of lying, So was it they are the one who are lying, or were they accusing others of lying?
Two
Right? And
different
even
subjects.
the way to pronounce it is different, right? Yakdibun, yukadhibun. Does it sound the same to you? It's
You can
different.
visually see that. I hope people are looking at that. Look at we've circled it in red where the differences are. Look on the Hafs side. You can see it has a fatha above the ya. On the Warsh side, it has a dhamma above the ya. Can you see that changes not only the pronunciation, talk about recitation, it changes the meaning. So one is they lie, the other one's they accuse. So it's the subject is completely changed. It pushed onto the other person. That would not, that, I mean, you can unpack that theologically if you want to, but certainly you can see this changes the meaning. So where is this idea that nothing is changed, that nothing changes any doctrine, practice, or belief? Can you see why we're putting these up here? Muslims, be careful what you claim.
Right, and here's another most important thing, Jay. Regardless of how our Muslim friends are going to push back and say, "Oh, it's one and the same," please tell me, was it preserved in heaven according to the Hafs reading yakdibun, or is it preserved in heaven according to Warsh reading yukadhibun? Don't tell me they're one and the same. They don't sound the same. Even a non-Arab speaker can tell you they don't sound the same. You see, that's the crux of the problem. Which one is preserved in heaven? That's the issue here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should we show another example?
Show another one. I would like to get to 98 also at one point, because this is the one that Shabir Ali really zeroes in on.
Maybe we can show one more example, and then we'll jump to 98 right away. So we'll do that.
So while we're bringing this up, listen, we have about over 70 examples here. Hatun has 93,000 of these examples. So far, we've only shown 2. And already, the 2 that we've shown, you can, those of you who don't speak any Arabic, you can see you don't have to speak Arabic to understand what we're saying. You don't have to read it to understand what we're saying. You can visually see with these slides. We have 70 right now that we can look at. We can show you these slides. We put them together to prove to Muslims you cannot keep saying there's no difference. You cannot keep saying that these don't change the meaning. You cannot keep saying that these don't change the theology. They do. Every one of them you could write papers on. Every one of them you could actually unpack. But all that Muslims want to do is talk about chapter 1, verse 4. Now, Shabir Ali, thank goodness, I put 6 up there last week, 2 weeks ago. I just put 6 or 7 up there. He just dismissed the others. I don't want to look at those. I want to look at 98. And the one in 98. We'll get to that later, but go ahead. Choose which one you want. Any one of these. There's so many.
So I want to just show one that will have a theological impact here. As you know, folks, Muslims believe that you are saved by work and that God will have mercy on you. He may have this mercy here on earth, but most importantly, your salvation is dependent on His mercy on Judgment Day, and therefore He will decide at that time whether He will forgive you or not, He will punish you or not, He may punish you for a period of time or not, and so on and so forth. So once again, we have the reading. Go ahead.
Who does the forgiving here? This is hugely important, because I'd like to know who is actually responsible for forgiving me my sins.
That's true. And when will this forgiveness take place? So the reading on the left is Hafs. Once again, why is it in the left? Because it is the standard reading today in the 1924 Cairo edition. And it reads basically about some people, and it says, "And we shall forgive you your sins." So the speaker here, and let's use the Islamic idea that the speaker here supposedly is Allah, who is telling people this. I mean, we have to put it in context. It could be a prophet for all I know, coming from the outside, I should say. I mean, I can look at it this way without putting it in context. I can say, well, somebody else could be talking. But no, let's use the Islamic standard way of thinking. It is Allah who is speaking here, say, "And we shall forgive your sins." It's talking about it right now as an indicative action. Right now, right this minute, your sins will be forgiven if you do these things.
Well,
Look at what's reading.
Let me ask, who does have the right to forgive sins in Islam?
Allah.
Only Allah, right?
That's right.
He's the only one. So I would say by default, the we, which is fascinating because that's plural in and of itself. And I know many people have come to say, what do you mean we? I thought God was one. I thought Allah was one. That's not what we're going to talk about right now. The fact is, the Hafs has it correct. Only God can forgive your sins, right?
That's right.
Okay, let's go to the Wash, which is known all over Africa. This is the second most popular derivation of the text.
Yeah, so the Hafs is telling you for sure that's going to happen. The Warsh saying, forgive us. They're asking, they're praying. And the answer is, and it shall be forgiven to you. So we don't know. We don't know. Really, in Arabic, yughfaru lakum. and the other one in Hafs, naghfir lakum. One is indicative that it will happen. The other one is it may happen. I can take it this way, and still the reading is different. And who is actually the one who will do the forgiveness in Warsh? You don't know. You don't know unless you are aware of the Islamic basically teaching. So both ways still different. Don't tell me it's one and the same Quran. Don't tell me that both readings are preserved in heaven. You see, I want to hammer this point out over and over again. Now, let's take a look at another one. You keep reading, talking, brother, as I go and put the 98 verse 6 right now.
No, so we've gone through 3 already. We've gone through Surah 1, Ayah 4. We've gone through Surah 2, Ayah 10. We've also gone through Surah 2, Ayah 58. We haven't even got out of Surah Baqarah, which is a second surah, which is the biggest one in the Quran. And now we're going to go to one that's right near the end, because there's only 114 surahs. We're going to go to chapter 98. And this is the one that Shabir Ali really did not like us using. He didn't want us to use this one. He really wanted to zero in on this. He just dismissed all the other ones that we had put up there. And we haven't even got to, we only went to 6 or 7 of them on the video that he's confronting. Now he goes to just this one.
With your permission, actually, there's one more thing, because Ramadan just ended. I just want to show people one problematic reading as well, and then we'll go to 98. So here it is. This problematic reading, again, is found between Hafs and Warsh. Islam, by the way, I don't know if people know this or not, the reading basically in Islam does allow people, and let me go there and just fix the slide so people can see it clearly. There it is. The reading basically, I should say, the reading is problematic simply because the teaching of Islam about Ramadan, that if you could not fast for whatever reason, you are allowed to feed someone to substitute for your work, and you would earn righteousness on account of what they have done. Now, all that to say is that if you look at the Hafs reading, it's talking about feeding one poor person, miskeen in Arabic, singular. Yet in Warsh, it's saying feed poor men in a plural. We're not talking 2, masakin. It's more than 2, because if it was 2, the Arabic allows for the dual form, miskinain, but it says masakin. So you feed at least 3 or even more. Remember, we said Islam teaches that you're dependent on good deeds. Feeding one person, Jay, is totally different than feeding 3 or more. You will earn much more good deeds. You see why this is a problem? I mean, that's why I like to talk about these issues. Don't tell me they're both the same reading. Don't tell me they're both the same Quran. So now let's go and find that example of Surah 98, verse 6. And, you can keep talking, brother, while I find it, of course.
Somebody
So
has to go all the way down to the whole end of the PowerPoint and go back to the last slide, slide number 86, because this is the one that Shabir Ali does not want us to talk about. This is the one he tried to defend. This is chapter 98, verse 6. Now, remember when Muhammad Hijab put out his hand and says, show me which of these you're going to put, which are you going to write down? Which one of these you're going to write? We've only looked at 2. We've looked at Hafs and Warsh, 2 different derivations. There are many in these 80 or 90 slides that we have that are many different ones from many different. We could go to 93,000 of these if you want to. We have only had the time to put together about 80 of them. And that's why it's fascinating that he zeroed in only on this one. This is the one he only wanted to talk about. Go ahead, unpack this one for us.
So I am going to go to the slide itself while everybody can see it, and you can see it with us, brother. So here is what's going on. You have the reading of Hafs once again on the left side. You have the reading of Warsh on the right side. So the Arabic word used in Hafs is al-bariyah, al-bariyah. And it's talking about what, believe it or not, describing the infidels of the people of the book and those who are idolaters. They are going to be dwellers of the hellfire forever. And then it describes them as those who are the worst of creatures.
Well, that's us. It's talking about us. It's talking about
exactly.
Okay.
You're the worst of creatures.
You are the worst of creatures.
Absolutely. And you can see it, many English translations of the Quran of this verse will say this. I mean, the vile creatures, worst of creatures, so on and so forth. Yeah. Now, the interesting thing is the Arabic self. And I want people to look at it, even if you don't know Arabic, just look at how both rasms and the tashkil, which is the diacritical markings and the dottings are. You're going to see Hamza right here. You're going to see a Hamza. You see it right here? You don't see it right here. And you see in the left side, Shadda. You don't see it right here. So how does this read in Warsh? It says Al-Bari'ah. Al-Bari'ah. Now, that's an interesting reading, by the way, Jay. I know that Shabir Ali thinks that when you claim that this is saying those who are the worst of innocent, he had an issue with that, and he says that's really not what it means. It still means the same, that they are the worst of those who are created. But here's a problem with this, because this word could be perceived as describing those who are innocent, and it also could be perceived as those from the word bara'a, those who were created. And also the same root word is used in a variety of ways in the Quran in itself to describe other means and other meanings as well. For instance, the word bara'ah in chapter 9, bara'atum min Allah, meaning that Allah basically is innocent now from what's going to happen to you, infidels, right? Why would Allah use it as innocent about himself? And you're not allowed to say that this is also describing the Christians and the Jews as innocent. In fact, early Quranic commentators did say that this also can mean innocence. So I'm confused, Jay. Why would Shabir Ali have an issue with this, unless if he doesn't know what the Arabic is saying?
Okay. I think what you're having, and this is what's typical of a lot of non-Arab speakers. Remember, Shabir Ali Arabic is not his mother tongue. It is your mother tongue. So for you, you can understand the mistake he's making. For those of us who come from outside, go back to the root. Remember, Arab words all have 3 letters. And whenever you go to an Arab dictionary, you go to the first person singular to find what the root word is, right? And you can easily be mistaken that saying, so this is nothing more than creatures. That's the root word. But look and see what they've done here. This is no longer the root word. The root word is there, but they've added an awful lot of dots and the hamza and the sukun you're talking about, which changes the meaning once you start doing that. And he's not aware of the fact that you cannot just go back to the root and say, it could be nothing more. It is a saying because the root word says this. This is typical of people who don't understand Arabic. Therefore, back to you. You understand Arabic. What is his error here?
Well, the error here is he's taken one view only for the word al-bari'ah. In fact, I would argue if it is really talking about those who are created, it should have read al-mubra'un, those who were created. So I'm not really so sure why he's having an issue with you to say that this means innocent, when even early Quranic commentators did exactly the same thing you said, and they did state that it could mean the innocence.
Okay, so on the right side, looking at the Arabic on the right side, innocent, the innocent, is there any other way that could you ever, looking at it as an Arab, could you say that this is creatures?
The first look, no. Your mind will go modern day Arab. The first look, you'll go right away to the idea that there is innocence here.
All right, on the left side of the house, looking at Barayati, excuse me for my pronunciation. Could you
Al-Bariya, I mean, you can look at it one of two ways. You'll think this is creatures, but even the word Al-Bariya, if somebody would read it this way, this means the desert, the empty, desolate land. But they're not going to think of it this way. The context is clearly describing humans here, people.
All right. So if that is the case, looking you as an Arab speaker, it would be obvious that these are 2 different words.
That's the point exactly, Jay. Looking at it immediately, just glancing at it, if an Arab speaker is honest enough with themselves, they will see that there is different ways of reading both words. And we're talking the Quran that supposedly is perfect and preserved in heaven.
So as a Christian reading this, because this is referring to us as Christians, am I a worse creature or am I innocent? Which am I? Depending on which I read, I'm going to get 2 different I'm going to walk away with 2 different interpretations, right?
That's right.
So if I'm an innocent Christian according to Warsh, and so are the Jews and the polytheists, what in the world are we doing in hell if we're innocent? So there's a theological problem as well.
That is very true. That is very true. In fact, it even flies in the face of what the Bible teaches, that all creatures actually, technically speaking, we've inherited the original sin. We're sinners. We're only righteous in Christ. So it seemed like the Quran is acknowledging that we became righteous, innocent in Christ, technically speaking, because it's describing the Christians here.
Yeah.
But
So
it did mention the Jews also.
Shabbat Ali would like the Warsh to be saying the same thing as the Hafs. The problem is the text, and anybody who doesn't even know Arabic can look, you can see it is not the same word. It does have different dots, and it has different vowels, and it has different grammatical parts. Yes, you're right. The structure, the skeletal text is the same. It's what you do with the skeletal text. And this is where an awful lot of non-Arab speakers don't realize why in the earliest manuscripts, the skeletal text we think is the same. We're not even sure that's correct, because that's a whole new series of study. You know what we're now doing. I have to be careful. I can't say too much about it. We're looking at the skeletal text now. I'm going beyond the Qira'at. I'm tired of the Qira'at. I'm tired of this discussion, because that's something Muslims have to deal with, and that's where they're getting a crisis of faith. They have no idea. When Al-Qadi said this is the hardest problem that we have, he has no idea. He has yet to hear what's happening in the 7th century. I'm looking over here, and I'm saying, no, there's some much more difficult problems. And some of it is already been introduced by
That's right.
my friend, Daniel Brubaker, because I want to go back to the rasm, and I want to see if even the rasms between these, I want to see if the rasm in the Hafs is the same as the rasm in the Topkapi, and in the Husseini, and in the Samarkand, and in the Ma'il, and in the Petropolitanus, and also in the Sana, your book. And we have a whole school of people now who are doing just that all over the world. We're coming together and we're looking at the rasm, something no Muslim has ever done. We're looking at the skeletal text on the earliest manuscripts, and we're going to see not whether or not the diacritical marks are different. We're going to see if the skeletal text is the same. And you won't believe what we're finding. But that's how I can't say any more than that. That's only something that I can introduce. It's going to be done. Where it's going to be finished. And when we come into the open with that, are we going to be called haters again? Are we going to be called Islamophobes again? Are they going to try to shut us down and get us off YouTube? Are they going to shut down every one of our YouTubes that proclaims that? And when that happens, I would like to see what Yasser Qadi, who lives here in the West, who lives here in Houston, he lives in America. I'd like to see what he's going to do with that material. They talk about a crisis of faith that he's had for 25 years. When he sees what we're going to show about the rasm, that by far is much more disturbing than what we're just looking at the Qira'at. Because the Qira'at are nothing more than 30 different scholars or 30 different readers and 30 different narrators who had their opinions about where the dots go above and below the lines, where they have the sukun or the maksura or the dagar aleph, all these which are come much later. That's all they're talking about, is how you flowered it up and get different variations of how you interpret it. What I want to talk about is the original text. I want to talk about the original skeletal text that supposedly is in heaven, that supposedly, according to chapter 85, verse 22, has always existed, the eternal tablet. And then I want to get back to also that Qur'an that supposedly came down to Muhammad between 610 and 632, supposedly was then finally written down, not during Muhammad's time, but at the time of Uthman in 652. And I want to look at that Qur'an. I want to look at those manuscripts. I want to look at, because hold on a minute, they don't exist. So we don't have that. We're going to have to go to the 8th century. We're going to go back to Sana manuscript, which is yours. Yours is the oldest manuscript. We're going to have to go back to those and look at them. And once we get to that and go public with that, then you're going to see a huge crisis of faith, not just with the Al-Qadis of the world, even the Muhammad Hijabs and the Adnan Rashids. They're going to have a difficulty when we show exactly what we are going to find. Now, I see this question that's come from this Jolly Shir. What proportion of Muslims are non-Arab speakers? Go ahead. I can't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah. We have about 1.7 billion Muslims in the world. And I would argue that about 300 million, give or take, who are considered to be Arab speakers. And which means we have at least 1.3 billion Muslims who are non-native Arab. They're not native Arabs. They don't speak Arabic. Arabic is not their original language. I'm not saying they didn't learn Arabic. Some of them probably did. But to say that Arabic is their native tongue, of course not. Even the 300 million that I said, or let's say 330 million, not all of them can understand the language of the Quran, by the way. So we still have problems even within the Arab-speaking Muslims anyway to try to decipher what the Quran is saying. Add to this the different readings, of course, and that's really reminiscence of how the initial Quran was transmitted. Everyone read it according to their tongue, according to the tribal way of saying things. And then all of a sudden it became a problem that required Uthman to step in, supposedly. And then later on, 200 years after the time of Uthman, in the 10th century, you have Ibn Mujahid stepped in. And then later on in 1924, Al-Azhar have to step in. I mean, it's always like this, issues with errors and readings and so on and so forth.
And then you've seen this book.
Oh, of course, that's my advisor, Dr. Mark Dury.
Dr. Mark Dury. He is now using material from Al-Jalad, who now is looking at the Quranic Arabic and looking, you mentioned the Quranic Arabic, and they're now saying that the Quranic Arabic did not even come from the Hijaz. The Quranic Arabic did not come from Mecca, Medina. The Quranic Arabic all comes from much further north, what they call the Southern Levant. Guess what's in the Southern Levant? Who and what is in the Southern Levant? Petra is in the Southern Levant. In fact, what they're saying is the Arabic that you see here written, including the Aleph Maksula, including the Dagar Aleph, including the word at, all these different words that you see that are in the Quran do not exist in the central part of Arabia in the 7th century. They would not have existed in the 7th century that far south. They are all found in the what they call known as the Nabatean Syriac, or Aramaic text from which Arabic is derived, which is 600 miles further north. Isn't that interesting that we're now getting that this Quran could not even been written in places like Mecca or Medina? So how is it that Uthman says it must be written in the Qurayshi dialect when there was no Qurayshi dialect that could even accommodate the Arabic that we're finding in the Quran today? Ooh, I love this. This is going to blow open all this whole discussion, which means the Qira'at that we're talking about could only have come from the late 8th, 9th, when Mecca was finally chosen, when Mecca and then the capital was then brought down away from Petra down to Mecca. Can you see how this is all going to fit now, where then these different dialectical differences, these Qira'at differences only get introduced in the 8th century, the late 8th century. And that's why at that point then, when al-Bukhari is talking about this, al-Bukhari is from Bukhara. That's not even from Arabia. He's probably he's in the Abbasid era. So he's living way up in Baghdad. What is today Baghdad? It used to be called Ctesiphon. He is talking hundreds of miles away and hundreds of years different. At that time, there would have been dialectical differences. At that time, there were 7 probably known dialectical differences by 870, late 9th century. At that time, this Arabic would have been in Medina and Mecca, but not in the 7th century. So even this whole discussion is going to be thrown out of the water once we now look and see where the Arabic is derived from.
Amen. Thank you, everyone, of course, for joining us. Hey, Sam Shamon, I see you here. Could you announce your upcoming live stream today, brother? Jay, what's on the hopper for you? What are you working on by way of videos? And how often do you release these videos on a weekly basis?
Oh,
and where can people go and find you and subscribe to you, just in case they don't know?
I'm on Fander Films. Fander Films is one of the oldest YouTube channels out there. I started Fander Films back in 2006. YouTube was created in 2005, so I've been there for 14 years. And the material that I'm working with is looking at the more academic material. We're looking at the 7th century. So everything I'm looking at is now from the 7th century. I've been doing this from January, and I put up maybe 1 or 2 videos a week. Now, during the lockdown, during the pandemic, I've been putting up a lot more videos. And then, of course, what happened last week, we've been putting up all kinds of videos because we're trying to respond to this, because this is the area I love the most. I'm not a Qira'at expert. That's not my area of expertise. That's Hatun Tash's. That's her area. That's her world. But I've been helping her out, and I've been helping her out in that area for the last 4 years. So what I'm going to be doing coming up on Friday, I'll be going up with David Wood onto his channel at 8 o'clock at night, and we'll be unpacking what has happened over the last 2 weeks. We're going to try to make sense of what's been going on, and why is it that everybody's upset, and why they should be upset, and why we can understand why the Muslims are calling us liars. That's the only recourse they have. That's the only fallback they can go to. Thank God we don't do that as Christians. And I thank God that when Muslims attack our Bible, and please do confront it, you've been doing it for years, not just the Muslims, everybody has been attacking the Bible for at least 2,000 years. We don't need to call people liars. We don't need to demonize them. We don't need to censor them. In fact, we ask you, we encourage you to please confront the Bible and confront the person behind the Bible, the book of the man, the book of the man. The book is the Bible, the man is Jesus Christ. And come home to Jesus Christ. Listen, he's used to criticism. Jesus Christ, for goodness sake, not only got criticized during his lifetime, he got crucified during his lifetime, and he never asked anybody to defend him. He didn't need any defense. Even the disciples, when they tried to defend him in the Garden of Gethsemane, he said to Peter, "Put away your sword. He who lives by the sword dies by the sword." Please come back to Jesus Christ, because he is the only one that can be defended. He is the only one that's above criticism. He is the only one that has a scripture that has gone through every one of these criticisms: historical criticism, source criticism, redacted. They were all invented on the Bible. I've been saying this over and over again all these 2 weeks. People need to realize that our Lord Jesus Christ and his gospel, the gospel of Jesus Christ, can stand up to any criticism. And if you want somebody to really defend the Bible, go to Sam Shamoun. I don't know of anybody better that can defend his Lord and his gospel than Sam Shamoun. I'm so glad to hear that he's coming up next. Over to you.
He is. And Sam, I wasn't able to hear your message. That's why I'm asking if you have a live stream, please go ahead and post it here for people to know. The chances are Sam will be doing one probably around, maybe, usually he does it around 4 o'clock, but you never know if he's going to do it earlier today. Brother, thank you so much. We need to obviously you and I revisit one more time, if your schedule permits, next week or the week after, the Sana manuscript. I'd like to also unpack that one. Obviously, I'm passionate about it simply because I'm studying it. And every day I learn something new about it. Every day there is something out there that we can expose. And by the way, I've already invited Dr. Brubaker to join me on a live stream, and he accepted. So he and I will be putting together the dates. At some point, I am going to ask you also to join me and him to do a panel discussion. And I'm going to dare and ask Dr. Dury to see if he would be open also to join us maybe in the month of July or August based on his schedule, because we want to bring a lot of academic, research to the forefront, let people know about what's going on behind the scenes and stuff and information that they are unaware of, especially our Muslim friends, of course. I mean, we know they don't like the fact that we are sharing this about the Quran. They perceive it as hate speech. I'm not so sure where's the hate here. We share the truth because we love you and we care for you. And brother, thank you for your ministry. Thank you for your work. Some people are asking if you can scream like you do it at the speaker's corner. So maybe next time you can do that. Lord bless you.
I got 5-liter lungs. You don't want to hear me scream. I don't do it indoors. Outdoors, you can hear it all over. But listen, God bless you. Thanks so much, Al-Fadi. We've been good friends. We've done this for not quite a few months now. I've known you for a few years. We're going to have an awful lot of these. I'll be on Fander Films. You'll be on CIRA International. Continue to do these dialogues. Continue to do these discussions. What you did today, we've only looked at 6. I think only 6 of these different slides. We have so many more yet to go through, because I think Muslims need to be aware of the fact no one has done what we're now doing in the Muslim world, and they need to start doing this in the Muslim world. We need to take it away from academia and bring it into the popular level. We need to take it away from the Yale universities and the big academic universities where everything is done on behind closed doors, and bring it down to the internet so that Muslims can see that they do not have one Quran. The Quran has not been preserved. And the more and more we look at it, it looks like the Quran is made nothing more than by man. This is not from God. It's not from Muhammad. It's not from Uthman. It's not even from Abdul Malik. It looks like it has been changed and changed, chopped and changed. It has been deleted, accreted, and finally it was canonized in 1924, just in one city, Cairo, in 1936, just in one country, Egypt, and in 1985 for the whole world, for all of us, 35 years ago. And I'm over 35 years old, which makes me older than the canonical text. The canonical text, the Qira'at. I'm just talking about the Qira'at, when that was finally chosen and canonized. God bless you. Thanks so much, Al-Fadi. You're doing us a great favor. You're the best host I've ever come across. And you are a very humble man, despite the fact that you're becoming the world authority on this.
Oh, man. Glory to God, brother. I'm not an authority on anything except the authority that the Lord has given to me from above. So thank you for being here with me. Thank you, everyone. As always, we look forward to having you again. Tomorrow, I will have Alex Blagojevich at 6 p.m. New York time, 11 p.m. UK time, and we will go from there. God bless you. This is Al-Fadi, over and out.
That's my phrase.